Morning, Mashi.
Good evening, Dennis. How are you doing?
Good, back at it, man. Now we have caught up a couple of times in the interim, but it's been a while
No, no,
since
it's
me
it's
and my
better
wife.
for me to feel like we haven't spoken to each other in months.
That would be
Came
wild.
in cold.
That would be wild. You're
Mm.
obviously fresh new location in your breakfast area in your new place. Very, very
Yep,
at
yep.
one with nature. You don't need to go outside to look at one particular tree now. They're all around. It's much easier.
Oh, I've upped it now, Dennis. After I wanted to get a quick start here, but after this, I'll go out with a huge backyard. I think it's about a quarter acre in the backyard,
Oh,
and I like to go out there and just get barefoot and kind of walk around the dirt, really feel the earth, get grounded every morning, dude. It's the best.
you grow more and more Californian the longer I know you. But this is something that I think will vibe with your sentimentality, and I hope you will take it the right way. That I think it vibes with your approach to work as well. It's a quote from the French Dispatch, which is a movie I'm a big fan of, where Bill Murray gives his feedback for when he's getting inputs for the magazine they're compiling, and he says, "Whatever
Mm.
you do, just try and make it sound like you wrote it that way on purpose." And that's sort of like retroactive intent is something that reminds me of you a lot. I've always thought of you as a sort of lead by vibes kind of leader, and then hope that if those are aligned properly at the start, that the results and the strategy will kind of follow.
Yeah, and it's kind of my old man used to say, if you can't dazzle them with dexterity, baffle them with bullshit.
Mm.
I think that
This is a slightly more romantic estimate of some of
definitely,
the similar things.
this comes from an old adage where you can't fake most things, but self-confidence is one of those things you can fake.
That's something
Um,
I learned at like in my late teens, where there's very little difference between pretending to be confident and being confident. Now, look,
mhm.
there's a gnawing sense in yourself of like imposter syndrome, or like, do I actually know what I'm talking about? But here's the secret: all the confident people that you see in your day to day life that you look up to, they have that too. They're just better at
They
hiding
have
it.
that too. I think that I I want to get back to this quote, but the self-confidence thing is a component of it. And one of the things I think is very interesting as I've grown older and started to wear self-confidence more and really poke at myself more is I think that one of the first of all that dialogue that you hear, all the doubt and imposter syndrome that you feel, you don't always feel it. That's all internal, by the way. Nobody can see that. You think they can read it on your face. They can't. They just see you being confident, and that's fine. And the more self-confidence is so much about when you start and you're kind of maybe fake it till you make it mode, how other people react to you. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's why it starts to feed on itself. But what I found is when you can, and when you can take very heartfelt, genuine criticism and not get defensive and maybe take it, whether it's, into your thinking space, whether it's a hot shower or a long walk or the gym, whatever it is, and really mull it over and chew it over in a non-defensive fashion and say, you know what, I think Dennis was right. Or, you know what,
Mhm.
I don't know if I agree with Dennis. Let me go back to him and not in a confrontation. I'll be like, I thought a lot about what you said, dude. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. That's, I think, when you feel okay, wait a minute. This is how confident people deal with the interactions in their life. They don't shut things down. They don't get defensive, and they consider everything. You really start thinking about it, like, I trust and love this person. They gave me now. Some guy at the restaurant yells something at me. Nah, F off. I
Yeah,
don't.
you
I
don't have to
don't.
take
I don't need
all
to
feedback
process that
equally.
one. But that's my take on that. I think the idea, going back to the quote about make it, there is a way that you want to carry things off, and you learn this if you ever do any kind of live stage work or anything like that.
Mhm.
You know the script and they don't. You know the blocking and they don't. The audience has no idea.
If you ever
Okay.
been, even take it back, if you ever been in a school play and had somebody flub a line or miss a line and go through it and had the audience not notice, you'll be blown away how often that happens in your day-to-day life. If you're
Mm-hmm.
presenting something at work and God, I wanted to say this thing, but I never got to it. They don't see the version of what you had in your mind ever. They only see the version that you put out. And so long as you put that out with intent and confidence, it is indistinguishable from the perfect version you had in your brain to begin with.
Yeah. And I mean, there's two kinds of audiences you want. You want the massively uninformed who's going to believe you no matter what you say. And then if you are good at your job, you want the massively well-informed who will understand what you're saying, even if you miss things. There's this huge, and those are the kind of the massively uninformed is a large group. The very well-informed is a small group. And then there's this layer in the middle, which is the half-informed but want to look good group. And they're the worst.
That's the most
They are the
dangerous, right?
worst. It's like, I don't have time to explain to you all this stuff that you really should already know. Because you've asked an insightful question that's somehow cutting to me when it isn't. Those are the worst groups. But
Well, but I mean, they made what they were saying sound like they were saying it on purpose and with
exactly,
intent, and like, right?
they covered your quote exactly. I think what's meant by all of this, though, is this notion that, again, you know the topic, you know what you mean to express, you know what you mean to say, you know what you're trying to convey, and by definition, the other side has no idea what that is. They're coming to it not knowing what your point is, what the message is, where you're coming from, or how you're attempting to say it until you make the attempt. And we all know you can come at timid. You know, Dennis, I don't know. I mean, I know I like this quote. You know, you always want to deliver a message, and you know, you don't want people to get the wrong idea when you deliver the message. And it's like, no, dude, come on. There's all these ways you can present yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that we benefit from, and it's a fine line between confidence, you know, and cockiness and arrogance, where you want to be confident. And again, you want to invite engagement. You want to invite critiques. You want to invite insights and feedback. Cockiness and arrogance is like, I don't even want to know. I don't want to. I don't want to deal with them.
Well, it's to do with failure, right? I think you can be confident, and this quote kind of speaks to that too, right? This idea that's saying, all right, I'm going with my gut here. I'm doing what I intend and what I felt like I intended, and then you get the result you want, and you go, yep, just like I drew it up, no problem. But it also shields you a little bit from this idea of like, oof, okay, stumbled on that one, didn't hit what I wanted to hit. That's a failure. If you can embrace failure and take it on as a part of a learning opportunity and plowing forward and continuing to move, that's the delta sort of, I think, between confidence and cockiness. Cockiness does not respond well to failure. Confidence responds extremely well to failure because it's not actually getting at your core.
I see. So I think we're going to say the same thing here, but I want to judge. I'm going to judge what you said. It's less about, for me, this quote is less about embracing failure than it is. And I think there is a difference here, actually quite a delta, embracing imperfection. It doesn't need to be perfect. That doesn't mean that it's not a dichotomy here where it's like it's either perfectly right or it's a failure. So few things are perfect in life, and the fact is we emotionally make things perfect. I think nothing is actually perfect. Emotionally, we will make something perfect, whether it's a person we love or an experience we find unique, or an item we love or sentimentally are attached to. That all of a sudden becomes perfect, mainly in large part to the imperfections which we find connect with us. But that's a different topic. Embrace the idea that nothing is perfect. It's okay to have a piece go out and be imperfect. Carry it off. No, see, when it needs to be perfect and it has to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, it's a failure. And perfect, that's the opposite of your quote, because then you are gonna lean so far into what the message needs to be, the cracks will be obvious when they form. But if you go into it saying, no, perfect isn't the goal here. 90% is good enough. 75% is good enough. Let's make the other 20, 25% enjoyable, and let's let it carry the rest of it. That's what we're really shooting for here. Embracing the idea that it's not perfect. It doesn't need to be a failure, but really embracing the idea that it's not perfect, but let's make it, let's allow for that imperfection and still make it a good piece. Let's allow for that imperfection, still make it good writing or a good presentation, is the key to it all. And I think there's probably a lot more to be said about our own lives, and like, let's just embrace the idea that we're not perfect. It doesn't mean we're failures, just means we're not perfect. And let's go into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, next week, next month, next year with the idea that, okay, we're doing our best. And that's really what anyone can ask for. Do a good job. Like strive to do your best. I don't even want to say strive for perfection, because that perfect is such a weird idea we have in our minds, that everything has to be picture perfect. And I get that way too. I get frustrated. Like,
it's human nature.
Why didn't I do this?
It's also, you see the version of other people, especially with like social media and everything, you see the versions of themselves that other people put out into the world, and you judge others based on their like own narratives of their own actions, but you can judge yourself based on your own failures. You're a much harsher critic of yourself than you are of other people, all that sort of stuff. And you build this sort of thing that you want to shoot for that is not only impossible, it's not even necessarily desirable. I think you'd rather put out 5, 10, 15, 85, 75, 90%ers than 200%ers if it was even possible, and it isn't.
Yeah. And I think we're kind of unique in that aspect to some degree, because I watch the dogs and I don't think they're not.
No, they're not as preoccupied with that as we are. No,
they're not concerned with perfection. They're concerned with, first of all, food, and second of all, love, but third of all, just comfort. And comfort's not perfect. Comfort is unbuttoning your table at Thanksgiving, or laying on the couch after a big meal and throwing a blanket on you in front of the fireplace. I mean, that's, I mean, I say that's not perfect. Maybe it is perfect. it sounds pretty perfect right now. So I love the idea of embracing the idea of imperfection. Like we don't need to be perfect, but carrying it off.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to point that out too. Sometimes we lapse into this culture of like ownership is, oh, I did this wrong and I did that wrong and this didn't come out right. Don't do that. Come on, don't do that. The cake, the turkey was perfect. All right. The pumpkin pie was great. Let's not sit there. Oh, yeah, it's a little too much sugar, not quite enough allspice. No, it's a good pie. Can we just move on?
I can tell we're recording this so close after Thanksgiving.
I know it's true. It's true. I still have Thanksgiving leftovers in the fridge, but I think there's a lot of that. There's this other way where we kind of, and this is again, I think a fracture, a lack of self-confidence, where we want to beat everybody to the punch with the mistakes. Mm-hmm. Oh, I did this wrong. I did that. Or no, Dennis. Oh, you did a great job. Building that up too. You want to call your shots. And I think at times we fall into that. So don't do that either. There's no reason for that. Well, I think that, again, nobody knows the mistakes you made. Nobody knows what you intended. So ride with it and carry it off as if you always intended it that way.
Well, Mashi, whatever you do when you finish your coffee today, whatever you go and get about throughout the day, I hope you make it look like you did it on purpose by the time the sun sets.
Oh, definitely, Dennis. Baffle them with bullshit. Remember that
every
one.
day.